Hey, what's up, Shadow Priest buddies? So, today I want to deep dive Mythic N'Zoth progress and share any of the little stuff that I kind of picked up on this boss, maybe some of the nuance, and things that I've learned through even maybe farming it. I don't know. I want to deep dive him. I thought he was definitely the most interesting boss to progress as a Shadow Priest because we're not really, quote-unquote, the meta spec to bring to this boss. And honestly, let's talk about meta specs for a moment. So why isn't Shadow Priest like meta on this boss? Let's talk about that. It's really about immunities more than anything else. We can talk about priority damage, but to be honest, it's decisions to bring a shadow versus not is, do we have room for a Shadow Priest? I mean, that's kind of the decision that had to be made on every guild's roster. Shadow's very, very strong. Wicked strong on boss damage, period. Like, we destroy the boss. We also do very, very good Psychus damage. And we're not like trading cooldowns over here to then be awesome at this one thing and then we're mediocre at something else like some of the other specs have to do. Shadow's just going to do great damage to N'Zoth and also Psychus because everyone can do damage to Psychus, honestly. And we suck at some other things, but what you're going to find is as you progress this fight, tentacle damage isn't important. Psychophages are complete pad and don't mean anything. And all that really matters on this boss is the boss damage itself. And during progress, Psychus feels like it's important, but have faith during progress that eventually you overkill Psychus and you can start pulling off CDs and putting them on the boss. This is raid-wide, not Shadow Priest. It's not going to be the constraint to kill the boss. It's not, even if you feel like you don't have the damage as a raid, you're gonna have the damage as a raid. I've heard stories from other guilds, and also our own included, we even doubted, oh, you know, we barely kill it and all this. Psychus damage is going to be there. And again, it's all going to come down to, oh shit, we need to move everything to the boss now, yeah. No shit. So all that's really going to matter is boss damage, and Shadow does fantastic boss damage. So when I approached this fight, I went for a build that I felt was going to perform on the boss and didn't really worry about some of the other negligible damage because I already knew this going into the fight. And I chose a Lucid build. It's good for that. But there are other builds on this fight as well, and they all have merit. And I'm going to go over what we're seeing from Shadow Priest and what they're running and some of the reasons why. There are multiple right answers on this. It's not even like I ran the best one and everyone that did something different is wrong. It's not even that. You have to pick what you're going to play the best at. And I'll show you what the top choices are in logs right now and go over the pros and cons of each one. For me, I have huge Lucid bias. I know I'm going to put my passion into that build, so that's why I went with Lucid, and it's really good for boss damage. But what else is good? There's definitely some talent choices to go with here, like Misery. And I'm going to kind of throw up some stuff that we can go over. So let's start this deep dive. As you know, my videos are always long and very thorough. So if it's not for you, then just don't watch it, okay? We're going to do a deep dive. That's what this channel is all about. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to show you a couple of things in Warcraft Logs. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here. I do want to do a walkthrough of the entire fight. So forgive me if I try to go quick. You, as a player, should know how to do this. So I want to show you how to look up statistics and how to look up rankings and what talents people are running on boss. So in the upper left-hand corner, sorry, go to the bars there, and you get a drop down. Scroll down until you get to, whatever boss you're interested in. In this case, it's N'Zoth. And there's a couple things that I use a lot here. The rankings page that will tell you not just rankings, but what the talents were that they ran, and also the corruption. And also statistics. We're going to spend more time on the rankings, but I want to quickly go to statistics since my video on Shadow Priest viability, we didn't have any data on N'Zoth at the time. So we have 191 log kills of Shadow Priests right now, and you can see we're way down the list. scroll all the way down. Oh, look at, you know, we're actually trash at the fight, right? But that's on the surface. I think one thing we need to look at here is look at this here and compare that to all of these other specs. Shadow can perform if it's given the opportunity to. And the reason why I think you see Shadow kicking at the bottom so low is it's very common in some cases to not send Shadow Priest down to the Psychus, and that is skewing the data in a very big way. The other thing is overall damage isn't that important. Let's look at max. And you can see max Shadow Priest is definitely a lot higher here, not dumpster tier. That means they were given the opportunity to go into Psychus, for example. It skews the data in such a big way. So by looking at the max or the higher percentiles, you're seeing the Shadow Priest like Z and I that got to go down to a Psychus phase. I can talk about why I don't know why they would not send Shadow down. We get free Twist of Fate and can dump that into everything. And if you leave Shadow upstairs, all those targets die so quickly, we actually suck at it. We're like the worst spec to go help kill tentacles that melt. Especially now with more and more corruption and more DPS in the raid. Everything is just dying super fast for our damage toolkit. So I believe like wholeheartedly that Shadow should be in a Psychus group. The other thing I wanted to go to is this is overall damage. And I was saying earlier, let's do damage to bosses. Shadow is really good at blowing up the fucking boss. So you got BM Hunter, Destruction Warlock, and Fire. Those are your true meta specs. Obviously Warrior. And then Shadow Priest. That's really high. Like, why wouldn't you want a Shadow Priest? We fucking fuck up this boss, man. I'm telling you, the boss damage is awesome. And we don't have to move our cooldowns off the boss to do Psychus or vice versa. So I think that's what makes Shadow really good at the fight, and it's sort of in a sleeper mode once again. I don't think a lot of people really get it unless you're a Shadow Priest and you actually stop and think about it. So I wanted to touch on that really quick. So obviously the face value statistics don't really show you the last two things. We're good at the boss, and if we have the opportunity to go into a Psychus group, we're gonna pull our weight and then some on this boss. I think Shadow is absolutely great at this boss. We might not be the meta, but the only way you're gonna have a roster full of meta specs is if you have alts to support that. Or they just totally recruited like 5 fire mages, which, you know, I guess they could do that. Good luck next year when they're not meta anymore, I guess. It'll be a new expansion, so whatever. Alright, so done with that. Let's go over talents and essences. So one thing you'll notice here is a lot of misery. Misery is very common. Misery is good for, I think, early progress when DPS is going to be a little sloppy and a little bit lower in general while people learn the fight, paranoia, stuff like that. Misery is good to help get double dots out on all the tentacles, you know, the non-Psychus tentacles. I guess even the Psychus tentacles. We can get double dots out faster on all the tentacles. But tentacle damage is going to be so not important. I personally didn't agree with running Misery, but you can see the popularity here. Twist of Fate is going to do more on the boss. So I talked about me personally, I want boss. So I ran Twist of Fate. You can see other people running Twist of Fate. It pops in here and there. And what's the right answer? To be honest, it's not going to matter. Pick what you want to do, I think. What you're going to play the best. And I believe Twist is going to be better on the boss, obviously. From a quality of life standpoint, Misery might make you feel better on the tentacle damage, and that can wear on your soul after a couple hundred pulls of that boss, and not having Misery, I didn't even put Vamp Touch up on stuff because things just melted too fast to be even worth it. So I could see Misery being better for your mental health, but I don't agree with it being the play per se, but I definitely, it's totally viable is the point. And the other thing I want to point out is the highest parse right now is Azerite Beam. This is going to be pad on Psychophages and going to be someone's farm kill, not a progress kill. Just below that is the Reaping Flames or the Breath major, that is going to be probably the most recommended major, I would say. If somebody were to ask me, hey, I really don't know what to run, I'd be like, run the Breath major. I think it's easier to play, a little bit more forgiving on void forms and movement, and it is pulling ahead in our pure single target sims right now. It's scaling really, really well with neck levels, and that's something that's sort of evolving in the past couple of weeks, especially, and depending on where you are with your neck level. So Breath is totally viable, and again, I think probably easier to play, and I think that's why I'd recommend that for a lot of people. The other popular build, and it's even listed as top essences, is Lucid, because originally Lucid was better pure boss damage, period. Again, with neck levels changing how Breath is scaling, it's slowly changing that answer. The downside to Lucid is it's unforgiving and it's way harder to play. I personally elected for that and put a lot of work into making it work, and I even scuffed the kill pool, which felt bad, but you know, I pulled it off correctly more often than I scuffed it, and it feels rewarding when you pull it off correctly. So the two top builds that I personally recommend is going to be this one here. You know, I call this the standard go-to is Lucid, Breath Minor, the Iris, and Blood of the Enemy, and then just flip the two majors around to run the Breath major. The other benefit to the Breath major is it's going to help a lot more on tentacles, and it's still good at boss damage. So it has that, it's sort of like a triple plus side to running it. And again, back to it being easier in general. As far as the Misery and Twist of Fate, I think I covered that already pretty well, but if you really want boss damage, go Twist of Fate, in my opinion. And if you want boss damage and you're not afraid of a huge challenge, then do what I did with Lucid, but it's going to challenge you as a Shadow Priest, I can tell you that right now. You have to play well. And the other thing is, depending on where your positioning is later on in the fight, the more movement you have, the harder it is on a Lucid build. I didn't get like a spot towards the front, but I know other people that do, and therefore it makes it a little easier to pull off the void forms to go with that Lucid. So if you're getting shafted on positioning, more reason to not run Lucid. Movement can definitely fuck it up, or it hurts it a little bit. It's, again, like, the void forms are important to get them to pay off for you. So this is overall damage. Briefly, I'm going to go over boss damage, because that to me is most important. So when I switch to boss damage, you can see the beam isn't even up here anymore. Like, it's not a thing. Like, if you're running the beam, you're padding on Psychophage, the little tiny ads that don't mean anything. They should really be dying to passive cleave the ignite from your fire mages, or even your Mind Seer to boost your sanity into your next void form push. Not for anything important. You can see Lucid up here at the top, but you have Breath. This is all within like margin of error. And again, I talked about the pluses and minuses of each build. But they're really close. This comes down to the player. This comes down to execution. This comes down to maybe your positioning in the raid throughout the entire fight. Things like that. When I personally ran Lucid, I can tell you it felt bad that I couldn't help out with tentacles as much, but it didn't matter. But it definitely wears on your soul to feel useless for something. So Breath of the Dying is going to at least give you something for that. Alright, so I'm going to do a walkthrough of the fight and kind of my thoughts as I go through it. I'm sure I'll ramble about 100 things. Before I get into this though, there is a feature I want to point out on the left hand side here. I have my Lucid timings. As I came up with, or I should reword that. As I figured out these were the timings I was going to commit to, like this timestamp and this timestamp, I made a note in Exorcist Raid Tools, and it's a personal note, and I changed my settings to only show my personal note because I didn't need to see a raid note that was being used there or anything like that. And I put it on the left-hand side, that way I could kind of glance at my combat timer, which is just in my UI, it's over here on the right-hand side. So I'd glance at my combat timer and just double check, you know, is this the void form I want to start here? Because when I start that void form, make sure that that lucid timing is going to line up. And again, this is where some of the difficulty or some of the complexity with lucid comes in. I can tell you that not everyone uses this exact lucid timing. This particular lucid nerdy science came from a shadow buddy of mine. We worked on this together, mostly attributed to his science. And, you know, as I went through the fight, I kind of figured out where those timings lined up and made notes to myself on how to make it all work out. And when we go through it, I'll point out some of the timings and why they are the way that they are. The other thing is, I added a boss damage meter. I usually have a healing meter because I used to heal, so I like to still see the healing meter, but not for this boss. I added boss meter. Okay, so the boss meter, I had to do that because I wasn't running a build that was necessarily good for overall. Like, I didn't go heavy on tentacle damage. I went all boss. I went full in on boss, so I needed this meter so I didn't lose my spirit when I wasn't in the top 5 DPS, right? The other thing is I would check my burn, the first burn, and I knew there was a certain quota I was trying to meet. And I'll point that burn out and talk about it when we get there. But I suggest adding a boss meter. It definitely enjoyed having that on this fight in particular. Never had to do it on any other boss, just this one. So, I'm gonna pause it right here. Pick your positioning for the start after you figure out what you're gonna do next. Like, I thought about this a lot. So, I look at the shadow of the boss, and I'm always gonna position kind of right in the middle, but not out here, okay? Because what's going to happen is these tentacles are about to melt. I'm going to try to get out as many dots as I can, but they're literally going to die, and I'm going to feel like I'm in a Mythic Keystone +5 where my dots are fucking useless. But I'm still going to try to do something, right? But I'm thinking about how we're going to go this way after these tentacles die. And I'm going to set up in this position for Paranoia. So watch me dot everything, and I'm going to move to that spot close to the boss so that it helps me kite the Paranoia partner with me to the position we're going to move to next. Again, I'm trying to minimize the movement to get the void form stacks to where they're not penalized too much. So I usually put double dots on the Bashford tentacles for sure, and you know, me not running Misery, the other ones, they're already dead. Like, I didn't even get to dot hardly any of them. So again, you see me positioning right up along the boss here, and I'm just gonna kite along here and try my best to keep moving or my partner gets mad at me. But I am gonna void bolt, stutter step as best I can, and weave in some powered shields so that, you know, I am moving this direction so that the rest of these people can also move. Like, I can't stand here. We do have to keep moving. That's very important. So I'm just hitting the boss. He takes like whatever, 99% reduced damage. I'm maintaining that void form and trying to bring it over to our new position. And it had varying results depending on who I was partnered with. You know, this particular pull I got 31 stacks. I have gotten higher. I've also gotten worse. It really just depends. Like, and look at these tentacles here. Wait, look, Jesus, they're already dead. This is the part that wears on your soul. It's a little depressing, and it makes the pulls really, like, this entire time you might as well AFK. Like, it's but I'm not AFK, right? What am I doing? I am maintaining my void forms and my timings. And I want to point out some movement here. Hold on, let me go back. So we just killed this tentacle set over here, and now we're moving back this way. Notice the movement that I did is just back and forth, back and forth. That is very common You can do a full circle if you want. It's a lot of extra movement. Earlier days, that is what I did. The tentacles lived long enough, it was worth it, but you saw how fast they died. So I just, in the end, commit to this back and forth motion like this. So the next tentacle set, our Psychus Group 1 has already gone down. They went down there. So I'm doing the upstairs section while Psychus Group 1 is doing their thing. And this set dies again super fast. But look what I'm doing here. I'm sitting on a Void Eruption right now. So this is because my first Lucid Void form is going to be the Void form I'm about to start. And I have a note here that at 1:30 on my combat timer, I'm at 1:25 right now, is when I want to start my next Void form. By starting it around that 1:30 mark, I'm going to get the Lucid timing that I want to have the, you know, hopefully a 50 stack of Void form. And then what happens is we go right into the boss burn. And I'm going in with max COI stacks. And that I've done up to like almost 4.2 mil on my best attempt. So this is definitely like works really well. However, I had to be very careful. I cannot start this Void form too early. If I started at 125, I'm not going to be able to get the Lucid timing to happen after the Mind Grass. So again, I'll talk about that when we get there. So the tentacle's already dead. It's 1:31. I'm trying to VE something, Void Eruption something. And this is a farm kill, so I just got used to waiting and doing it on these neurons. So we do a Paranoia. The other thing about this Paranoia, I'm going to point out, I want to be on this side because we're going to be doing this movement later. And if I am on this side, that's extra movement. So something to think about is, where are we going next? Always be thinking about that with positioning. What's the next step? The other thing is my raid kind of starts too far over and they never fixed it, so there's a lot of extra movement in our particular raid. Other guilds will do this Paranoia set closer to the next tentacle spawn, and we don't do that, so more reason why I have to set up on this left hand side, as long as I can get my partner to do that with me, and that I'm not always successful. This time I was, sort of. Kind of middle at this point, but... So here's the Mind Grass. I disperse it. Obviously we're going to disperse this. I'm at 19 stacks. And as soon as this ends, depending on... I'm going to push this Lucid as far as I can, but during progress, if I didn't line up that Void form, I wouldn't get this Lucid off. So there's not going to be any rush with this Lucid because I'm only at 20 stacks. Again, my Void form I started a little bit late. So real quick, let's talk about this. Look how far we had to move. This is like the alley of death. Like, these Eds, I've died to these fucking Eds more than any other reason on this fight. They're cancer. Which is why most guilds, I think, line up their grasp closer to this stack point over here. What I'm gonna do, though, is I am mind-searing these Eds. Mind-searing off the Basher Tentacle. And I'm pushing this Void form, these stacks here, as high as I can, and I'm gonna try to get this Lucid off as late as I can without scuffing it, and trust me, I've scuffed it plenty. Plenty of times have I scuffed this. So I Lucid at 30, that's pretty fucking good actually. I'm like dealing with ads near me, those are scary. So they're lusting for the Psychus. And another thing I'm watching for here is a couple goals. I want like a 50 stack or more, but our raid is melting the ads, so that kind of made things difficult for me this particular pull. You're gonna see I don't get the stacks that I'm after. I have done it, it's just when those ads melt like that, it gets harder. The other thing is I'm watching Psychus. He just died. Ideally, if I wasn't distracted with those ads, I would have already had dots on this boss, because Dot Nazoth, when you see Psychus at like, you know, whatever, like 10% or something. So that you don't have to waste globals putting dots on him after he's able to take damage. So this particular pull, I didn't get this burn isn't as good as I've done. Like this is actually one of the worst burns I've done because I only got 46 stacks. I didn't pre-dot the boss, so you know I did good the rest of this pull, but this first burn I definitely didn't do what I usually do. Notice how much haste I'm getting here. I'm able to void bolt every other global. It's because of Lost and the stack up of everything. I have a weak ore here, like boss can take damage, but again, for me, as soon as Psychus dies, he's going to be able to take damage. That ultimately is what I ended up paying attention to more because of the prep involved. And again, I didn't do the prep I needed here on this pull, but you can see, you know, that's what I should have done. This particular burn, I only did like 3 mil. And during progress, I used to be top on this meter. So I scuffed this pool, and now everyone else is getting better at the fight. This is a farm kill, so... Alright, so now we're gonna kill... We're gonna do a group Paranoia. And again, I want to be close to the boss. Okay? And the reason for that is because we're gonna be moving again. And I just want to be close. Minimize the movement as much as possible. Word about... Let's talk about Paranoia. One of the things that we found out, like early progress, Paranoia was a huge problem, but it's not that big of a deal. It's more of a mind fuck than anything else. Plus they kind of like they changed something with the next where as long as people don't stand on top of you, you'll be fine. So here, I was able to dot both groups because I ended up getting joined with someone. I went around the long way, but my goal now is to kill the blue square as quickly as possible because we need to go down to the Psychus group. A word about these puddles. These puddles, if you fuck up anything on this fight, do not get hit by the puddles. That is what fucks your sanity more than Paranoia, or getting a tick of black shit, or whatever. Like, those red puddles, pretend that they one-shot you. That's how you need to treat the red puddles. Pronoun, this is Psychus Group 2. It's very important that your tank goes down before you do. If you go down first, these little ads are gonna fuck you up, these guys. If I have gated in first and they just insta-kill me. I've had it happen so many times. So always make sure your tank's going down first. So I only put pain on the first guy. I'm only gonna probably pain him. I might do double dots. I think this past week I was able to start doing double dots, but that one wasn't worth it. This tentacle I do. If you'll get a sense for it. How long is this tentacle gonna be alive? Is it worth double dots or not? The other thing is, I didn't get to point it out because it happened too quick, but I delay my void form in here as well. I'll back up to it real quick. I think it's worth talking about. Okay. Gate in. I get a pain on this guy. I try to get double dots on Psychus. And usually I try to do my Void Eruption off the second tentacle. The reason for that is I'm trying to line up my void forms more for the boss burn that follows this. I did delay it, but I did Void Eruption off of him because he was slow. The other thing, don't stack on people in here, you gotta stay spread. Also something very, very important. Keep a spread in here. It does like damage and shit. So I'm just dotting the next tentacle. Way ahead of time. I try to stay on it briefly and then I'll start dotting this one. I think this particular pool, I actually scuffed something here, actually. My Lucid was late here. I almost lost my Void form, so I had to sear off of Psychus to save it. So this pool was not my best Psychus. Is one of my worst Psychus groups, actually. Because now I didn't get to dot the next tentacle, and now I lost my Twist of Fate. So that's a mistake there, fairly big one. You want to have that. You want to make sure you're dotting every Corruptor tentacle, at least through this one. When we got to this far one, I don't bother anymore because Psychus is going to hit low percents. I'm going to get Twist of Fate. And the other thing is my silence. I couldn't even kick him over here. Like, travel time. This tentacle wasn't worth my travel time, but every group's going to be different. You have to make that call for yourself. I used to go all the way down, and then it turned out not to be worth it anymore. So the second he dies, the second Psychus dies, be on your body. And as he dies, you spam click yourself. And the phasing feels a little awkward, but as soon as you can, target the boss. Because he's now taking damage. The second you leave. As soon as Psychus dies, you can damage the boss. So I immediately get dots out on the boss. I'm going to Shadow Fiend here as well. I did one dot. I actually did, yeah, just one dot. Just to get Twist of Fate. But don't overcommit that. Like, it's not worth like doing a bunch of things to those psychophages. Just enough for one twist is all I usually would go for here. Now we're just in here burning for a little bit. The Thought Harvesters are going to be spawning. We're going to stack for some healer cooldowns. Because the first Anguish is going to pop. And we kind of sit in the barrier for the first tick of Anguish before we're allowed to spread to our positions. The positions are set in advance. We're not YOLOing these positions. They're already determined. I'm hoofing it to my spot. Again, Shadow Priest, ideally, let's talk about this. You want to have these front spots should be your healers. Generally, Shadow Priest is good for this middle section. When maybe as far back as here. You don't want to be in the very far back because you can't hit the boss and you're going to lose your Void form, and you might as well delete your existence. We pay too much to be out of range of the boss, so you definitely want a middle/middle back position. I think is the most fair, non-greedy thing to do. I think a lot of higher parses of Shadow are going to be in the very front. No, that wasn't me. I had like the middle. I also babysat my healers. I made sure I didn't tick them and I yielded to them, and I was a very nice partner for them, or tried to be. So here's the next Lucid timing coming up. So all of these Lucids line up with these graspises. So we're going to get a grasp here. I'm going to disperse it. And I'm going to Lucid immediately following that. And this particular Void form, my stacks were higher than normal. See, I'm dispersing. I'm at 32 stacks. To get off this Lucid and Void Bolt right now was a little stressful. I did pull it off, but normally it wasn't quite that bad. Usually it'd be several stacks lower. Okay, this thing is flashing at me. Stop it. So we're gonna have another Anguish. I just multi-dot the Harvesters. This is the nasty one. So here is, we're dropping this Anguish here, and these beams are gonna spawn, and of course it's random, but when you're dropping this one, know where these eyes are, because sometimes, like this beam here, is going here. So I'm just gonna go this way, and I'm fine. Sometimes this beam spawns like right on me, and the correct play, because they're gonna spin this way, sometimes the correct play is to move backwards instead of this way once these circles spawn. This was an easier beam, so I didn't have to do that this pool, but sometimes the correct movement is straight back or like back left in between the puddles, and it's really important that this particular spread has enough room in between people. Like these people are too tight. But generally there needs to be enough space. So the other thing is this particular Paranoia. This thing would stop breaking on me now. Okay, this Paranoia is coming up. It was very important after this anguish that the whole raid shifted this way. And that was very intentional. The reason for that is the next set of beams are going to go this way. And if we stay here, the beams would push us into the black stuff. So that's very important, and that's a raid positioning thing. See here now, we're just going left, and that's why we pre-set up far to the right, so we had enough room to kite to the left safely. I believe this is the Thought Harvesters that he called to switch on them because they always die a little bit slower. Usually we don't have to hard switch, but that particular set we always did for whatever reason. At least in our raid we did. But generally we're not hitting them directly. I just multi-dot them. I think some of the farm I was putting some void bolts into them to kind of extend my dots a little bit. But generally I'm on the boss. So the heart phase was kind of like, I was stressed about this, like watching it, but doing it is fucking easy. Like this phase is very, very easy. The important thing to remember is when a bomb is going off, you need to be as far away from it as you have to max range it. So the raid leader tells us to spread. We have I don't know what the hell these, they look like anguishes, whatever this purple swirlies we need to dodge, so we've pre-spread for that. The other thing is, this is bomb number 3. I'll try to pause the next timer so I can show you. Everyone's going to be on a bomb set, and you have to watch your timers for this because then you know when yours is coming up. So look, cleansing protocol number 4. So I would look for this because I am number 4. I'm set 4. There's a bomb that I'm dedicated to disarm in set number 4 in the middle of the room. So I did make a habit of always watching right about now for that number 4. So I'm like, alright, 4 is coming up. I'm going to move to the center, immediately click my bomb, and then I'm going to max range, you know, the one that we're going to let explode. So I get back to the wall with the raid. Another thing is if you got those purple swirly things, make sure you keep that in mind that you're max ranging those bombs when they go off. I did die, I think, once to that. I just got out of the raid and didn't realize I kind of went towards one of the bombs that we were letting explode. So I made that mistake once. Let's talk about auto run. Let me go back. So when the gate spawns, the whole raid should go together, and we auto run. I hit auto run, then I click the gate. And I don't know if I did it on this pull or not. I did fuck it up, I think, recently. It might have been this kill. Yeah, I did have the auto run. So the auto run means we're already here by the time we can control our character. So it just helps with movement because usually we're going to be stacking for raid cooldowns here. And if I didn't do the auto run, then I would have had to cast and move when I could have just been in position as soon as I had control of my character. So we're doing raid cooldowns. This is our group soak for the Thought Harvesters. We're also staying in the barrier for the first tick of the Anguish. Again, we go to our predetermined spots. Now this one is where we're going to completely change sides of the room. And originally I used a gate on my kill and I got burned by the gate, I think twice, and I won't do the gate anymore. Like, just fuck it. Like, so I'm not going to do the gate here. There's an optical illusion on the kill where I thought for sure I was gating in a perfect position, and I gated right into the beam. So here's our next Mind Grass thing, and this is the Lucid again. This is going to be my Lucid timing. So I'm at 12 stacks, 13 stacks, that's pretty good. I'm using Dispersion. I don't need the Lucid right away, so that's good. Again, my movement, you know, is definitely hurting my Void Forms here a little bit. I Lucid pretty early. I could have pushed that high later, but I really played safe here. I didn't want to risk scuffing this again, so I definitely went with what I felt I wouldn't fail at. But again, like, I definitely could have Lucid later there. So these beams take time to get used to adjusting for. You can see where that they're clocking left. Our mages and people with ports and stuff usually go to the left so they can port through the beam. I did that on the first kill. It felt a little risky, so I didn't do it this kill here. So yeah, this is the end of the fight. So we're just stacked up. We're not absorbing any of that Thought Harvester stuff. Usually the raid lead is going to call which way we're going, but you should be looking yourself at where these beams are. And that was a pretty fast kill time compared to our first one, but yeah, so why those Lucid timings? Reason why, let me go back. That Lucid is the last Void Form I'm gonna get before I start a fresh one for the final burn, and I have full COI stacks. It's about manipulating COI. That's why the Lucid timings that I did are the way that they are. So again, like, I only got 45 stacks here. Very capable of doing higher. I played it super safe. I really didn't want to scuff this pull. But here's my fresh Void Form right here. So I have fresh Void Form into this hero, and I have full, like, max COI stacks. Again, it should have been a 50 stack, ideally. Would have been nice. But that's sort of why I chose the Lucid timings that I did. And in our first kill, this Void Form would have actually ended higher. Like, we killed him at 31 stacks, so I would have even got, like, a higher Void Form there, too. So yeah. That's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I don't think there's anything else that... Did I leave out anything else? I think I covered it all. Maybe I'll remember something random and put it in the description of the video, but hopefully you enjoyed the walkthrough and taught you something new today. And until the next time, later.